Welcome into our Osceola studio and welcome to another edition of Seminole Sidelines, bi-week edition of our show as we reflect on what was a stress-free Saturday for a lot of FSU fans, but it was very fun if you were watching your rivals. Not a great day for Texas A&M, Notre Dame, Florida, a bunch of others. Very stressful for them as we see major adjustments with the rankings and reevaluating where programs are after a couple weeks of the season. But we are very much focused on Florida State here on Seminole Sidelines and the week ahead. It is now Louisville week as the Seminoles are 2-0, and we will bring in our two Osceola football analysts. We have Mark Salva and Pat Carter, a couple of good old teammates from back in the mid-1980s. We've got them together again here on Zoom for gentlemen, welcome in.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to be here. Neighbors again, PC.
That's right. Glad to see you, buddy.
We were next door neighbors at Burt Reynolds.
Well, now you're next door neighbors on Zoom, and we appreciate you guys jumping in here as we kind of look at the bye week. And I think this is a challenge for a lot of coaches is how do you manage the players coming off a physical game on Sunday, give them a couple of days off, of course. And I think Mike Norvell was not really happy with that Wednesday practice, but then felt better about Thursday. What's the mindset of a player as well as a coach when you're in the bye week? How do you kind of manage? You're still sore, you're still not feeling great, but you still have to go out there and do a job and get ready, get better.
Well, go ahead, Pat.
Okay, well, I was going to say, for me especially, you got to clean up the things that the mistakes you made from the previous games and probably work on some things going forward for the next opponent, which would be Louisville. And as far as the players, as far as the recovery, we got to make sure get them in the training room and get them all back healthy and ready to play.
Yeah, this was a unique situation because of the stature of the game that we just played in New Orleans. It was a physical ball game against a quality opponent, a lot of national media, a lot of coverage. So, coming out of that game, our guys were probably pretty sore. But we're going to have to get into that routine every week, play, recover, prepare. I mean, that's a cycle you're just going to have to learn to manage and get through, right? But because of the circumstances of this last game where everybody's talking about how good we are, patting us on the back, all that kind of thing. PC, you remember these days. It's when you do something like that next practice, no matter what you do, it wasn't going to be good enough, right? It wasn't going to be. So I think, look, I heard what Mike said at his press conference. It's not unexpected, right? No matter what they did, he was going to get on them. He was going to take that opportunity to coach them hard, hold them to a high standard. And I think that's exactly what he should have done. So, and then, on the next day, hearing that they did respond and have a much better practice. And look, I'm glad we didn't play this week. It gave us a chance to kind of let this emotional adrenaline that we got on Sunday a week ago just kind of dissipate a little bit and really get us back and level set everything and move forward.
Yeah, I like this early bye week. I think you guys do too. There's also good reasons for it. Even though it's early in the year, you went through a prolonged camp starting in July. It just felt like this team had worked hard. Coach Mike Norvell demanded a lot from the players, and they put it all out there on the field Sunday night to beat LSU. So Mark, as we kind of move forward just a little bit, I think one of the big storylines here was an early injury to Bless Harris. A very unfortunate injury because he was a guy that we really liked at right tackle. We thought he was a guy who was fit in quite well, a transfer from Lamar from the FCS level, but playing at a pretty good level, playing pretty well at this Power 5 level, I should say. And Bless was a guy we thought could grow, could improve with each game. Unfortunate injury there, but Coach Atkins, Coach Norvell had taken very much a next man up mentality with these offensive linemen. Mark, as you look forward here, who's the replacement in Jazz Turrentine? How much did you like of him against LSU? And maybe if you guys can comment on the Alex Atkins mindset of we're going to keep cross-training, developing these guys for what's next when we need that next guy to step in.
Yeah, the long-term success for our football team is dependent on our ability to handle the attrition that we're going to naturally get through injuries. And again, history shows these last couple of years, we get injured or two on the offensive line, and we just struggle, and it all kind of fell apart, you know. So did a great job in the offseason of shoring that up. We signed some quality freshmen, brought in these transfers, Harris, Turntine, Dimitri Emmanuel, Caden Lyles, you know. And so we had the depth built up. Now all of a sudden we've lost Lyles, we've lost Harris. Is Darius Washington available? I don't know. You know, he didn't play at all that I saw on Sunday. You know, and so our depth is now being challenged already this early in the season. You know, especially with Lyles and Harris being out for the year. So cross training is imperative, and it's smart. It's a smart way to prepare and understand that we've got 9 more games to go, 10 more games to go, and we're still going to have attrition. So managing injuries, again, getting that cycle of playing, recovering, managing injuries, but still being able to prepare and improve. It's smart. You've got to have guys that can play multiple positions to be able to handle that through the course of the season.
I think one of the big guys who came back for the LSU game was Maurice Smith, and Mike Norvell said this week that Maurice was a guy who was expected to come back for the Louisville game. They figured he would take the bye week, get that extra time to get ready, but he was in the treatment room, lived there to get ready to play against LSU. And we saw he did go down briefly against LSU, but got right back up, didn't even have to go to the sideline. He was ready to take that next snap. What does it say about a guy like Maurice Smith? I mean, you know it, Mark, you played the position. It's physically demanding at center. Your mind has to be there for all the checks, all the calls to help out the lineman and the quarterback. For what Maurice did to be able to play in that moment at a pretty high level against LSU, to come back fast, what does it kind of tell you about Maurice?
Well, it tells me he's a competitor, and that's the kind of guy we need to anchor the line. You know, you're right. That position is very important. At least, you know, in me, and when I coached the offensive line, the center was so critical in setting schemes and setting protections and coordinating not just with the line, but with the backs and the quarterback. And that is so key to have a veteran guy in that position and the same guy in that position. You know, the guy the guy that practices in that spot, you know, through the course of the whole week is the guy everybody's used to hearing, used to seeing. You know, the whole key to offensive line and coordinating all that stuff is that everybody sees the same thing, right? So when a defense provides a look, that they all see it the same way, to where the communication has to be minimal. You know, like whether it's just pointing out at the mic or it's just making one little call with a hand fist or something like that, that everybody from the 5 guys plus the tight ends plus the backs plus the quarterback know what's happening, who's going to be the free if they bring too many, all that stuff. And so having that guy in the middle is critical. And for him to do what he had to do to be on that field speaks to him, number one, that he's competitive, number 2, that he cares, number 3, that he's a leader on the team.
And Pat, maybe back to you. I think we've seen how in Mike Norvell's 3rd year, depth and competition has been a pretty key storyline as Mike Norvell takes the next step with this program. How are you kind of seeing depth develop, whether it's at tight end, offensive lines, certain other positions, just so that an injury doesn't become a setback for the full unit as far as when they're playing their next game?
Well, especially I've been, the couple games that I've watched, I've been especially watching the tight ends, and I noticed that they've been using, multiple tight ends. I'm better with numbers than names. 85, 87, which is McDonald. I remember McDonald, and the young was 49. I thought he played well the very first game, made some key blocks. So you gotta have those guys to be able to, like Mark spoke earlier, attrition comes along, and you got to be able to have guys that'll be able to step in. So I think what he's doing is the right thing, being able to play multiple guys, because you're going to need that as the season wears on.
Okay, guys, we'll be back in 30 seconds. We'll talk a little bit more about the offense. We'll have a few words from our sponsor, Alumni Hall.
Right now, you can pick up single game tickets, 3-game packs, and season tickets for the 2022 season. Home games include Florida, Clemson, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Boston College, Louisiana, and Duquesne. Have fun this football season with your friends and family, all the while knowing your ticket purchase is funding FSU's success. Call your ticket rep today at 850-644-1830 or visit Seminoles.com. That's Seminoles.com.
All right, we're back with Pat Carter and Mark Salva. We're going to continue our conversation on the offense as we move forward in Louisville week here. Guys, I think we focused on a lot of positives, Jordan Travis among them. Let's talk just briefly about areas of improvement before we maybe go into a couple of guys who have impressed us through these first couple of games. Mark, if I were to ask you one real area of improvement as you're kind of watching with a critical coach's eye, whether it's Jordan Travis or anybody else on the offense, who are you kind of looking at, or which unit are you looking at and looking for improvement?
Well, I think the obvious one is probably wide receivers. We've outside of Pokey, who had a great game. Guys separating, finding open spaces, and making tough contested catches. That's going to be critical for us moving forward, guys, because everybody knows we've got 3 great running backs. We've got a running scheme and a running quarterback. People are going to scheme our running game, and they're going to make us win throwing the football. So now that puts the onus on that wide receiver core to get open, make contested catches, whether and just be on the same page. And of course, Jordan executing the throw. But as much as anything, that's one thing I think that we really didn't see against LSU. The one thing was we didn't have a lot of guys just on the outside coming wide open. We hit McDonald on a couple little short dig routes in the middle, where safeties were really off. But when corners and nickel backs are going to contest our 3 or 4 receivers in the field, they need to be able to run crisp routes, stick, create separation, and give Jordan something to throw at.
All right, Pat, same question to you. I mean, from a critical eye, what player or position group are you kind of looking for a little bit more from, areas of improvement?
Well, I kind of agree with Mark to an extent, but I'd say collectively all the pass catchers, because especially the LSU game, I thought Jordan Travis was putting the ball on the money, and guys weren't stepping up and making the plays for him. And as we get along in the season, somebody's gonna have to step up and make those plays. He talked about McDonald catching those little dumps, but McDonald missed a beautiful pass. I thought that was an awesome pass that he threw up the seam, that I thought he should have made that catch. That's a catch he's got to make. And it was I think it was in the end zone on the Pittman. I thought that should have been a catch as well. So right now, I mean, if Jordan continues to throw the ball the way he is, these guys got to step up and make the plays for him, because I mean, there's no excuse. That's what you're in.
Johnny Wilson too in the end zone.
Yeah, he missed one. There you go. I knew it was one more. I couldn't remember who it was. That's right. So there you go.
It feels like Jordan Travis is putting the ball there the majority of the time in a really catchable spot for a lot of these guys, wide receivers, tight ends, even some running backs. We've seen a couple of good throws to the backs. Mm-hmm. Hey, one thing I'm curious about is it seems like the receivers downfield are blocking better. Are you guys seeing better desire to block for your teammate, to kind of make those longer runs or those passes, open up some lanes for some guys? Are you seeing better perimeter or downfield blocking from these guys? And Mark, maybe to you first.
Yeah, against Duquesne, it was great. LSU, there wasn't a great opportunity to kind of really evaluate that. We didn't really break a lot of perimeter runs or runs down the middle, so it was really kind of hard to evaluate that against that level of competition. I would hope it is. Ron Dugan's being an FSU receiver. He knows the first number one job description is you give it up for the team and you block downfield, because Coach Bowden will not let you play if you don't block downfield. And I think that's probably ingrained in him. And I think Norvell, being an next receiver, probably has a similar mindset. Prima donna is not allowed. You got to work for the team. And so, yeah, I would hope that's become a bigger part of their ethos in terms of their job description.
Yeah. Because I'm curious about some players who've impressed you through a couple of games here. We've had a chance to watch them. yes, against Duquesne, an inferior opponent, but also LSU. Mark, maybe one or two guys who you have seen a step forward from them from when you last saw them. Maybe it was the spring game, maybe it was the 2021 season, but a couple guys were just kind of making that next step as they're maturing.
Well, the obvious answer right now is Jordan, and that's the obvious one. I mean, if he continues to play at a clip like that, that's going to put him at an elite level status. Is it sustainable for him? I hope so. We'll see. Time will tell. But I'll tell you one guy that has impressed me that I wasn't sure about was Dimitri Emanuel. Looking at his film at Charlotte, I mean, I saw good things, but it was Charlotte, right? But he brings to me a hard-nosed mentality to our line, and just like a work ethic. Because he's not a flashy guy that I can tell. He's just a guy that he comes off the ball. He's not just a huge dude, right? But he looks like a strong guy and a thick guy. But he comes off the ball. He knocks guys off the ball. He works. He gives great effort. It looks like he's got a great attitude. I like the mentality he brings to our offensive line. That's a guy that I'm going to keep watching him, and hopefully he can maintain that. And I'm pleasantly surprised at him.
Yeah, good transfer portal pickup out of Charlotte. Obviously, Coach Atkins had a relationship with Dimitri, and Dimitri has a chance to finish his college career with some great coaching and really help Florida State be productive here this fall. So Pat, to you, same thing. One or two guys who you're maybe seeing emerge. I know you mentioned earlier 85, your old number. Marcus Douglas has looked good in some spot opportunities here and there, but maybe some other guys who have impressed you so far.
The first guy that comes to my mind is Treshawn Ward.
Sure.
I just love his style. He's just slippery. He's elusive. He did it against Duquesne, and then he came back and he did it against LSU. I like Benson against Duquesne. I didn't see the same running. I didn't see the same productivity against LSU. And the third back, Teofili, he's good. He's been good both games that I've seen him play. Been really impressed with him. But the guy I think has impressed me more than anybody is the Verse kid. He has just been. I know there was a lot of hype behind him, so I was kind of waiting to see. And he's really impressed me. Of all the people that I would say, I think he's been the most impressive to me.
Yeah, I think that is a good transition as we move over to defense. Mark, we were talking a lot over the summer about Jared Verse, and we did not want to set the expectations too high, that this was going to be a fill the shoes of Jermaine Johnson. Because that's unfair. Jermaine came 2 years in the SEC, an older guy than Jared. How it's tough to evaluate Jared based off that Duquesne game because it was a vanilla offense they were going up against. But against LSU, the 2 sacks, the blocked field goal attempt, the effort, the energy seems to be there about as consistently as you might be able to ask for from an edge rusher.
Yeah, I agree with Pat and with you. The plays he made were so athletic. The redirection, the speed, the burst off the ball, and the plays he was able to make due to that were very surprising to me. I mean, we all knew he had the ability, but we didn't know he had the playmaking ability, right? We knew he had the measurables, but we didn't know if he had the it factor in terms of making plays. And he demonstrated that against LSU. So that was a pleasant surprise. But there's a lot more to play in that position than sacking the quarterback. And it's going to be critical this week because setting the edge is going to be critical against Louisville. And so maybe some of the finer points in the running game, playing with leverage, gap control, all that kind of thing. He can't get careless on that kind of thing. Hand placement, hat placement, all those things that are required for that position, the finer points. That's going to be interesting to see how quick he picks up on that kind of thing and is able to play, even though he may not get a sack and get very few pressures in a game, is he able to fulfill the job requirements in the other areas in within the scheme of the defense? That's going to be critical for him moving forward to me.
Yeah, coachable moments for sure, and coachable moments against a mobile quarterback. Those are always really challenging for the big guys up front. I want to get your thoughts about the linebackers. I think if we're looking at a position group that has really taken a step forward from 2021 to today, I think it has been the linebackers, and it's been Kalen DeLoach seems much better. DJ Lundy seems lighter, moving very very well, and Tatum Bethune, the transfer from UCF, who very instinctual, and I think he's been a very good addition to this defense. Forsey's playing a lot of 4-2-5. That's the way college football is these days with the spread offenses. But Mark, to you first, where and how have we kind of seen this improvement, growth of this linebacker group, and just how much has it made the defense just function better?
Two things. The first thing that really stuck out to me, and it really stuck out to me even the Duquesne game, is that they are much more decisive. There's not a lot of indecision when the ball snapped. When the ball snapped, they're moving. It's downhill, pass drop, scooting to the sideline. They are keyed in, reading their keys, and are moving at the snap of the football. That wasn't the case the last couple of years. Last couple of years, they've been kind of a lot of indecision, a lot of false steps, a lot of stuff that got them in trouble. And as a result, we're always a step away or a couple steps away, or making them take bad angles. And I got to give Randy Shannon all the credit on that. I mean, that's obvious that he has solidified and made it simpler for them to be able to execute and use their natural abilities, to me, right? The other part that I think is greatly improved is their tackling. How many times have we seen arm tackles, run through our linebacker, second level, the last several years? I hadn't seen that as much in 2 games. So to me is the most exciting thing about this defense, is that our second level, that linebacker level, has improved dramatically, and it just has impacted the effectiveness of our defense 100 times, in my opinion.
Yeah, Pat, I see you nodding your head. You're nodding your head there. What are you seeing with the linebackers?
Well, he made some valid points in the sense that I noticed the tackling is so much better now. Especially compared to the years ago. And then he spoke of Randy. I would probably attribute some of that to Randy as well. But the one kid to me that I just kept seeing splash plays was Bethune. Every time I noticed, I'd look up and like, who was this kid? And it was the Bethune kid. And I'm like, wow, okay. So I'm very pleased in the direction, and especially with the way our linebackers are heading now. I'm very, very pleased with that.
Yeah, it's a good storyline early on here in the fall, and it's a good storyline going into Louisville as we kind of transition our coverage to preview the Cardinals here. Louisville coming off a Friday game, they went down to Orlando, beat UCF 20-14, and they needed that one after a really early drilling at the hands of Syracuse. A very unexpected early score, but sometimes it happens week 1 of the ACC season. You don't really know what to expect from certain teams coming out of the gate. I think the obvious with Louisville is how much they lean on Malik Cunningham, their quarterback. He is a good passer. He's an improving passer from what we've seen from him a few years ago. But I think Malik's expertise, what he is more comfortable doing, is running. And he is that true dual threat that can make it very dangerous on defenses. Maybe to start, guys, does Louisville lean a little too much on Malik Cunningham, or is that truly just out of necessity where they are and trying to put the pieces together around him?
Well, I mean, watching that UCF game, I don't think that's necessarily the case, Bob. I think I saw their running back be pretty effective, and he looks like he's a load, that running back. His name escapes me, but their running scheme is challenging. It's going to be challenging for us, I don't think it's just one dimensional. The good news is we played a quarterback like him a week ago, a runner, a guy that's probably more effective running than he was throwing. I think our guys can learn the lessons, apply the lessons they learned on Sunday, having to, mush rush at times, but make sure you have gap control during your blitzes. What you don't want to do is bring pressure, 5 and 6 man pressure, and leave an open gap where he can slip through. You just got to make sure if you're bringing 5 and 6 man pressures that you got every gap covered, you've got contained, and that he has nowhere to escape to once that pressure comes home to him. I did notice when UCF did try to bring some heat that his eyes would drop a little bit, and his passing became less effective. Right. So again, that's going to be a key. But no, they're far from one dimensional in my eyes. I think their running game is going to present some challenges to us defensively. It's going to be key. They like to run that stretch play, right? And if you remember, I guess it was maybe 2 years ago we played them, and maybe even last year, when they run that stretch play. And this goes back to your previous question about the linebackers. It's gap integrity and setting the edge is going to be so key for our defense this next week. When they run that stretch play, that back has got a lot of time till he hits that sticking point, and then he can find a gap. If there's an open gap, there needs to be somebody there filling it, and that goes back to the linebackers. Because I can't remember how many times, watching Louisville the last couple of times we've played them, they run that stretch play and the guy breaks to the line of scrimmage and the linebacker's not there, and he's getting there late and the back runs through an arm tackle and they get a big gash. I'm looking forward to seeing Bethune and Kalen and Lundy be in those spots, and whether it's Akeem coming, filling the backside gap from the safety position, being in those spots, stifling that running game. And if we take that away, that's going to be really key. And the other key, of course, is going back to Verse and to the other defensive ends to really setting the edges to stifle that running game. To me, that's going to be a key for our defense. If we do that first, and rush with gap integrity, I think we got a chance on defense.
I think as we look at
the little bit that I saw of Cunningham, his legs is what makes him special. And so from our standpoint, I think we have to immediately take that away. But it starts, like you said, we have some experience playing the LSU quarterback last week. And so it should help us if we clean up some of the mistakes that we made from last week, which should hopefully slow him down somewhat. But like you said, Mark, I agree with you there. That running game is pretty good. So we're going to have to make sure that, everybody has their gap integrity and make sure everyone's in place to make the plays for this, because it's going to be needed, because I'm sure they're going to be running the ball heavily against us.
100%.
Yeah.
They're definitely going to test it.
That's correct.
They're going to test it. And so if we stifle it early and that's going to put, consequently put the game in Cunningham's hands, then we're going to have to deal with that. And you're right. I mean, his legs are definitely a weapon. But look, that's college football these days. I mean, you watch Alabama yesterday. Bryce Young makes the plays with his legs to win the game. I mean, that's just college football, and our own quarterback same way. It's something that people have to deal with. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out in this game. I said when we beat LSU that physically we're going to match up just fine. I don't think physically we may be at an advantage on both fronts, but now it becomes a scheme discipline thing. Who's going to be the better coach team? Who's going to execute their scheme better? And that's going to be the difference in these games moving forward.
No doubt. I
as we
agree
kind
with
of
you
look
there.
at
We're going back to LSU. Another thing, though, I think is overlooked is what's not recognized is Coach Norva did a hell of a job having these kids prepared for that. That's a big game that they were playing, and they met. I felt like the kids met the moment. They didn't wilter. One thing I was really impressed with was I think we had a 14-point lead. They came and scored, and we turned right back around and scored again.
Yeah.
Our previous ways, we wouldn't have done that. We would have wilted, and that showed me that coach got those boys playing with some heart.
Yeah,
I hadn't seen that before.
The culture's definitely shifted.
Correct.
I think that's evidence of that.
Correct.
So hopefully we continue that, and we don't get too proud of ourselves. How we handle prosperity, right?
No doubt. That's right. I agree. But we needed to have. We needed.
Oh, we needed success. Absolutely.
Yes,
for our
yes, we needed that. We needed that.
I needed that.
I did too. I did too. No question about it. I did too.
Yeah.
It's definitely something we need.
That's good. Handling prosperity and adversity mixed in there, and of course there will be some adversity when Florida State goes up to Louisville on Friday night. Tough atmosphere to play up there. Um, so I guess I'm curious if you were looking at this from a defensive coordinator standpoint, and you've seen Louisville, you've seen Malik Cunningham. The options are there. You can play man. You can play the corners out there, and every corner will tell you he likes to play man because that's the way he grew up playing the ball game. You can play man, and you're going to have your back turned to the quarterback, and he might run on you to the edge. Or you can play zone, and that brings up new challenges too. A lot of communication needs to be there for zone. Mark, maybe to you first. If you're putting on that defensive coordinator hat, how do you best prepare a game plan for what Malik Cunningham and that running game is going to throw at you?
Yeah, there's all kinds of different ways to prepare for that. I think the most dangerous thing to do is to play zone man under. If you play two deep man under, two deep, five underneath man under, now you're only rushing four, and there's a lot of scenes for him to escape. And if he's escaping without us getting pressure and having gap integrity, there's still some seams there just by numbers. And if you got those five underneath guys with their backs turned, chasing guys down the field, that's the most dangerous situation in terms of that. So if they're hurting us with the passing game, that's the coverage that a lot of people go to, some kind of man under, whether it's a 5-man pressure with a single safety man under, or it's 4-man pressure with two deep, 5 under. Those are probably the most dangerous situations in terms of the quarterback cutting loose. If you're bringing 6 and playing straight zero coverage, that's where I was talking about before. You need to make sure that every gap is covered. There's nowhere for him to escape, because now if he escapes, not only do you have 6 back at the line of scrimmage, now you've got the other 5 chasing guys down the field, and he's got all kinds of running room, right? So there's that. The safest thing is probably just playing straight zone, maybe 2 deep, with the corners up a little bit, and linebackers keyed in, watching the quarterback's eyes, and having them fill the certain lanes, and making sure everybody's kind of mush rushing, kind of containing the quarterback. The spy thing, I go back and the thing with the spy is you better make sure that the spy is just as athletic as the quarterback. It does no good to have a spy who can't run and who takes a bad angle and can't catch the quarterback. How many times have we seen a guy kind of hang back? He's not doing anything except watching the quarterback. The quarterback goes out and he can't catch him, right? That guy has done nothing that play. So if you do, he just better have a good feel and be able to run and tackle. So that's there's a lot of different ways to look at it, to attack it. Each one is valid. It's the best thing to do is mix it up and not give them the same look every time. Make them guess a little bit, and so you can't not, you don't want to just table something because you think it's too dangerous. There are going to be times when, certain looks and certain packages you're just going to want to run. And, you just got to make sure that everybody's on the same page about how they're going to handle the quarterback.
Yeah, same question to you, Pat. I mean, put on your defensive coordinator hat, and how do you formulate a game plan, or do you lean toward what Mark is saying, and kind of you have to mix it up a little bit?
Yeah, I'm with Mark more or less, in the sense that you got to mix it up a little bit. But I'm gonna take I'll probably be a little more aggressive than Mark probably would. I'll probably send more people at him. I wouldn't sit around and wait as much. So I say this way: am I mixing it up? I put in more pressure than I would just sitting back and waiting, because I think a guy like that, you got to put some pressure on him and make him uncomfortable back there. But like you said, like Mark said earlier, you gotta have that gap integrity, because if he finds that lane, it's over. We're gonna be in some trouble there. So I would imagine the coaches will be stressing that all week long.
Yeah, I think so too. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out Friday night. Looking at Louisville on defense, Mark, I know you scouted that game Friday at UCF, and it was not the best start for Louisville with early scores for UCF. But we did see the Louisville defense settle in, got some takeaways, had, I think, 10 straight drives that they stuffed, including that Jarvis Brownlee interception late in the game on 4th down. So that's a familiar name, Jarvis Brownlee, former Florida State player who's transferred up to Louisville. But Mark, your impressions of that Louisville defense?
Yeah, so they're going to present a whole bunch of challenges for us. I don't think that they're down 3 guys that they usually have their hand on the ground. They're not physically impressive to me. They're not world beaters by any stretch, but let me tell you what they do. And I started counting about halfway through the first quarter, and the times that they brought 4, 5, and 6. Bottom line is, they give you a ton of different looks, right? And they stem late. And then you got mugged linebackers, you've got linebackers standing on the edge, and then when the ball snapped, there's some kind of pressure movement, whether it's a slant or it's a linebacker mugged, tack a gap, lineman around. There's a lot of guys switching gaps, movement every time. When UCF was gashing them, UCF caught them on a slant and had somebody sealed on the backside or something, and a run would take off. Or they caught them in a blitz, and the quarterback got the ball off and they hit an open receiver, something like that. But those long runs that they were gashing them with, and the quarterback runs that they were gashing them with, were at times when Louisville was slanting the wrong way, and they caught them on a slant or a stunt where there was a late guy coming around, or they just totally sealed off a gap and they gashed them. But it seemed like late in the game that the defense kind of got a beat on what UCF was trying to do and mitigated a lot of those things, because more times than often they were right moving forward about where they stunted, how they stunted, where they stunted into. So for us, we really got to be in our game, and everybody has to understand their assignments. Everybody has to understand when we get a certain look, what are the possibilities in terms of, stunts, twists, all that kind of thing, because it happened in the running game and the passing game. So linemen, backs, quarterback, all on the same level, all on the same page. You can't have offensive linemen on different levels, because when that happens, then you're going to get these penetrators, these loopers, and offensive linemen standing looking at each other while defensive linemen are running into the backfield. So that's got to be critical. I'm glad we've had this extra time to prepare for them and really shore that stuff up. That's going to be critical for us to have success in the running game, and critical for us to scheme them and have success in pass protection, in my opinion.
Hey, one more question on Louisville, and then let's jump into some of the Osceola Reader questions. But I'm curious with Scott Satterfield at Louisville. He's 19-20. This is just the start of year 4 for him. You would maybe expect Louisville to be a little bit further down the road, a little bit more structured in the way that he wants to run things from a roster standpoint, understanding the scheme and all that. And it's hard for, I think, Louisville fans to see that they lost to Syracuse to open the year like that. Is his seat warm, simmering, getting hot, or let's see how this season kind of plays out for him?
I mean, I'm not a Louisville fan, and I'm not privy to what their expectations for their fan base are. Satterfield's a quality coach. I think he everything I've seen, he brings a quality scheme. The question is, if you don't have him, who are you going to get? Is his seat warm? Maybe. I don't know what their expectations are, though. I mean, if their expectation is to win the league and beat, Clemson and everybody else, I think that's unrealistic. I think they're competitive for sure. I think it's wait, let the season play out, and let's see how they do.
Yeah, and in fairness, we don't know the buyout. We don't know the situation and what the demands are with a new AD and a new president at Louisville. But Pat, do you have any thoughts on, as you've watched Louisville through the years, are you seeing a program that you think give Coach Satterfield some patience, give him some leeway, or do you think the seat's getting a little warm for him there?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't really know a whole lot about Louisville. I really don't. You'd think going into his 4th year, losing to Syracuse, I'm sure there's a lot of disappointment going on, throughout the program. But like similar to what Mark's saying, though, we don't know the expectations. We don't know, overall what they're expecting from him. So that's probably as much as I care discuss, but because I don't really know a whole lot about it.
Yeah. Okay, guys, I apologize. I lost your audio. Go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just going to say, they're competitive, and they've got, this whole league looks like everybody has a good quarterback, and Malik is in that same mold, and they're going to win some games and they're going to lose some games. Look, personnel wise, they don't have elite personnel all over the field, and that's just the reality. And that's Louisville, and that's I imagine it's a tough place to recruit just because of the geography of it, where they are kind of in between Big Ten and SEC country, and it's just Kentucky doesn't produce a tremendous amount of elite football players, and so they probably have to go into Ohio. They probably have to go down south, and it's hard to get kids to come to Louisville. They've had success in Florida. They've been able to bring kids from Florida in the past. Lamar Jackson comes to mind, right? I mean, so it's again, it goes back to the expectations. Louisville is, I mean, they are who they are, but they're competitive. And it's a game that we cannot take for granted. We can't take anybody for granted. It's really not this Louisville team. They play hard, and that's the thing. When you're looking at a coach and you're evaluating a coach, does the team play hard? Do they make stupid mistakes? Are they undisciplined? I don't see that, right? I see these guys playing hard. I see they have a good scheme. I see the coach getting upset when things don't go right. So it tells me they have expectations of performance. So yeah, I'd be hard pressed to say he's on the hot seat.
All right, well, we're going to take a 30-second break, and we'll be back to kind of wrap up the show. And we'll have some SEO subscriber questions for Pat and Mark when we come back.
Alumni Hall, where you'll find officially licensed FSU gear for the entire family, including brands like Nike and Champion. Plus, great gifts for your favorite Seminole and home decor, too. Miss some of the old Seminole throwback logos? Check out our College Vault collection. Shop online at alumnihall.com and let our great customer sales team ship to you within days. Or pick up in store in Tallahassee. You'll find us in the Miracle Plaza Shopping Center on Thomasville Road. Students and military get 10% off in store, and Osceola subscribers get 20% off in store and online with their digital membership cards. Alumni Hall.
All right, welcome back. As we wrap up Seminole Sidelines, we have some reader questions here, and we'll fire up the first one from Warpath Knoll. He says, really enjoyed the pod after the LSU game and thought Mark's insights were great. Now that you've seen this team and possibly most of the teams we will go up against in the coming games, how's your view of upcoming opponents changed? Are there games you think will be easier than before or harder? So I guess we have Louisville next. We have Boston College, Wake Forest, Clemson coming up down the road. Kind of what are your thoughts based on what you might have seen watching some games this weekend or last weekend?
Well, let's start by me saying that I think physically, I think we can play with everybody on our schedule physically. I hadn't been able to say that in past years. There were physical mismatches for us going into some games, but I don't believe that's the case this year. That being said, there are certain intangibles like quarterback play, scheme matchups, things like that can give us problems. And I talked about Louisville already. I mean, that they're going to offer us some challenges scheme wise. Wake Forest always does with their offense that just drives me nuts. And they're very disciplined on defense. So I think that's going to still be a big challenge for us. BC, I was shocked about how ineffective their offensive line was. That's very un-BC like. So that game to me maybe made it a little easier. Than I thought maybe going in. I'm probably going to eat those words. I hope not. And I'm just going to tell you, Clemson's defense looked elite and is elite, and they got runners and hitters all over the field on defense. I think Clemson offensively is going to struggle. I think their offensive line is going to struggle. That could be a matchup for us that we might could take advantage of. And if they keep DJ in the game, it looks like DJ hasn't resolved any of his issues in terms of decision making, poise running the offense. It looks like he's still maybe the same guy. So, if Debo chooses to stick with him, I think that maybe they've come back to the field a little bit. In NC State, I don't know. That I want to say that East Carolina game might be an aberration. I'm going to withhold judgment on NC State until maybe later I see a game or two more. We didn't learn anything last week with them playing a lower division team. So, and then, looking at Florida, I think that's, cliche as it is, you throw the records out the window, and that's going to be a tough game no matter what. But we do get them in Tallahassee, and that's a good one. The Canes, I'm going to tell you, I think the Canes are gettable. I don't think they've earned the ranking they have right now. My first impression on their defensive line is not great. I think that may be something we can take advantage of. And I know their offensive line is going to be well coached, but I don't know personnel wise if they're going to be elite. So yeah, that's going to be a battle. It's a rivalry game. That's going to be all chips on the table, et cetera, et cetera. So look, we have not arrived. Okay, let me be first that we have not arrived. We had a nice win Sunday. We still have to play flawless football, execute on both sides of the ball, tackle well, block well. As we continue to do that, we have a chance in every game. But we definitely, the days of us walking on the field and the game's already decided, that we're definitely not there yet. And we're still a little ways away from that.
I want to ask both of you guys this next question from Northwest Florida boy. I think this is a good one that Charles Fishbein has sparked some debate about Jordan Travis. Is he, I do not like using the word elite with quarterbacks, but this is Northwest Florida boy's question. So is he an elite passer? Does FSU need an elite passer to expand and open up Mike Norvell's offense? And how much of the offense do you think Jordan can run? Can he run enough to win the ACC? I have some interesting thoughts on this. Pat, I'm curious what your thoughts are first on Jordan.
Elite, I just say it this way. I think he's a great player. And he's good at what he does. And coach continues to put him in. I've seen a continued growth in him, a continued improvement. And I'm only two games in this season, but I'm really impressed thus far with how well he's throwing the ball, how well he's moving around in the pocket, how well he's commanding the offense. And when people ask about a lead, I'm impressed with what he's doing for us at this moment. And if he continues on the ascension, as he continues ascending, ask me that at the end of the season. But right now, I'm very pleased with him.
I'll say this: he's an elite competitor for sure, and that's what we've always loved about Jordan, is that he's a competitor. He's obviously a smart guy. He's obviously put in work to improve his weaknesses. He's obviously understands his importance to the team, evidenced by his running out of bounds, sliding a little bit more than he maybe has in the past in the first two games. Is he an elite passer? Well, he was Sunday night.
Yeah.
11 for 16 on third down, I think it was. I don't know how many of those were throws, but I think most of them were. We talked about how he, some of the drops that he had were elite throws. He was Saturday. If he plays like that every game, then the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Is that a level that's realistic for him? We'll see. I mean, I hope so.
I do.
I hope so, but I do know this: Jordan Travis will give his all for this team, and I really can't ask for more than that.
I agree.
Yeah, I think we wanted to see improved play around the quarterback these last couple of years. We're seeing better play. The receivers could do more. Some of these catches that are right there, they could haul those in, and it would make Jordan Travis look even better if they played well around him. I think the leadership, the quality of passing is there from Jordan. He's not just the runner that he's been perceived to be these last couple of years. we are seeing growth. Is it good enough to win the ACC? I think you have to look at the full roster and the opponents, and too early in the year to tell that from my view just yet. Mark, we talked a little bit about this in our Louisville preview, but the strategy against Malik Cunningham, do you pack the box? You mentioned why you would spy, why you wouldn't based on the spy's speed. But the philosophy of packing the box, yay or nay to you in your mind?
Look, I think again you change it up, because you don't want them to get a beat on what you're doing. You want indecision to enter his mind. You don't want him to get comfortable. A quarterback can get comfortable if you're bringing the house every game, every snap. A quarterback can kind of get comfortable in that situation. He understands the timing and he understands where's, he starts getting a feel for where his receivers are going to be and where they're going to win and who's going to win versus who, and matchups that are advantageous. I mean, so you've got to mix it up. You can't let him know where you're coming from, how you're coming. You got to keep him off balance. The key is just not letting him get comfortable. And that, to me, that's whether it's stacking the box, dropping off and playing zone, whether it's, disguising coverages and bringing guys, bringing Charlie blitzes from the short side, whatever it is, you just can't let them get comfortable.
Well, we have our last question from Flava Knoll, and I think it's a good one because we can wrap up with two gentlemen who helped build the dynasty run from the mid 80s, that 1987 team that finished against Nebraska with a win and started that 14-year run of top 4 finishes in the poll. But it seems like a lot of people are always going to reflect on that Miami game. And Pat, the question about the 2-point throw, I think it's been discussed and talked about, the call, the personnel. You guys were there. Pat, I'm curious, the question specifically is about that 2-point conversion. What happened there that you were double covered? The catch would have been very, very difficult. What was the thoughts about that play? And maybe take us back through the game. Were there other options? Had you guys kind of worked through and practiced certain plays that would really work well as a 2-point play?
Well, I'll say it this way. When we practice that play, Sammy Smith is normally in on that play. And what had happened was we put Dexter in, which at that time, Dexter was more of a receiving back, and Sammy was our hammer. Well, with Dexter in there, Miami, I just think they knew that we were going to throw the ball. And they were prepared for it, and they were in position to make the plays, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was a play action pass, right? It was 344 Y option, right?
344 Y eyes, Y. I'm supposed to be in the back pylon. I can't remember.
Okay, Y corner.
You know how many playbooks I've had to learn?
I think that was it. 344 Y corner. That's probably what it was.
That's what it is, Y corner. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, so it was a play action pass. Sammy Smith ran for 200 yards that game.
Sure did.
Right?
Sure did.
And so you stick the ball in his belly, you think they would have jumped it. I think Pat said this. I don't know if I heard it from you, Pat, or I heard it from somebody else, that they talked to Bubba McDowell, who was the safety on that play, that when Dexter was in the game, they were playing pass all the way. And
that was my neighbor.
He was your neighbor.
I lived in Houston. He lived 2 houses down from me.
Okay.
And so it probably was me that told you that. And they study too now, so they know as well. Now you got to think about it.
Yeah, Jimmy Johnson was no slouch, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, no, that was an all-time great game. I mean, that was. I remember at first we were going to go for one, and then we called timeout. Remember, we all went to the sideline.
Yeah, let's go for it.
McManus, well, we talked Coach about it going for 2.
Let's go for it. Yeah.
And of course, it didn't take much to convince them. Let me be clear.
No, I agree. Hey, you know what I always think about? We didn't have that playoff though. If we'd had that, like they have now playoffs.
Oh, no question.
I don't think they wanted to see. Nobody wanted to see us.
No. No. During that whole run, if there's playoffs, we were always the best team at the end of the year.
That's correct.
Yeah, you guys would have been in so many of those 14 playoffs going back to the day for all those games. Well, I think the other part of that question, Mark, is a good one too. I mean, you talked about a lot of those guys you went up against in practice, who were some of the best defensive linemen you went up against maybe in practice, as well as opposing teams, whether it was Miami, Nebraska, or some of those guys.
Yeah, so many, right? I'll have to say, as a team, Pat, you probably agree with this, that 86 Miami defensive line, when they had Jerome Brown and Dan Celio and Dan Stubbs, right?
And Kevin Fagan.
And Kevin Fagan.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was
Yeah.
that was I mean, that was tough.
And then you still had Cortez Kennedy and all them other guys on the bench, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Russell Maryland, all those guys.
Russell, right. Russell Maryland, those guys.
I mean, come on,
right.
Give me a break, right? You know, that 87 Nebraska line was strong. They were Neil Smith,
That's
Broderick
right.
Thomas.
That's right.
Right. You and him had a nice little battle going.
Yeah.
You know, I had what was his name? Lawrence Pete played for the Lions. Did he play with you?
Sure did.
Lawrence Pete.
Well, yeah, we were there a year together. Yeah.
I mean, I remember putting my hand on the ball first play of the game, and I saw that Sigma brand, and I'm like, man, he has it on his calf. And I look up, no, that's his arm. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in for a long day. I will say, after that game, I was never as sore in my life as I was after that game. I remember going back to the hotel and sitting in the hot tub for a while. I was sore. So those probably were the two biggest, strongest lines. You know, I played against Danny Noonan. He was a guy that, you know, for me was a tough. You know, he was just so strong and big. Yeah. Oh, that Auburn defensive line.
I got a guy for you though. That we played North Carolina in '86. Reuben Davis. Oh, yeah. He was a 3 technique, and they had him playing 6. And man, it was like running into a brick wall, man. That big dude was something else. Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of great ones.
A lot of great.
Well, good memories, and we thank you for spending some of your Sunday with us. We thanks to Pat Carter, Mark Salva. It's another edition of Seminole Sidelines in the books, and looking forward to this week's coverage on the Osceola.com as we preview Florida State and Louisville. We thank you for spending time with us, and we'll see you next time.
Go Noles.
Go Noles.